Have you checked the children?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. We have a special bonus episode for you today. I am Cecil Laird.
Jaime Fuego here.
And we are joined by a very special guest, someone that has helped the channel in so many ways, so many different times over the years. He has gotten us access to a ton of different movies ahead of time, and quite frankly, has his portion of this event that we have been covering for years now is the one that has introduced me to some of my absolute favorite horror films of the last 4 or 5 years, however long we've been covering it at this point. A couple standouts for me are I'll Take Your Dead, The Final Girls, and God, what was the there was so many others, Fuego. God, what are some of the ones you're talking about?
The Greasy Strangler, the Transfiguration. I mean, there's been tons and tons of gems in the selection process. So.
Indeed. So we are talking about the Phoenix Film Festival and, of course, the branch that we are most interested in, the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival, which is headed up by this man with us today, who is Monte Yazzie. Monte, welcome to the channel.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm super excited to be on. Big fan of you guys from the very beginnings. It's such a joy to see how far you guys have come in the short years that I've known you guys.
Well, awesome. Well, longer years between Monty and I, since we go all the way back into grade school, which is cool. But yeah, man, I mean, seeing your ascension into genre promotion has been really sweet as well. And the festival is in its 16th year now, correct?
Correct.
How long have you been involved as a director?
I've been involved, I think this is my 5th year going into being the director. Before that, I was in liaison work as well as programming work. But taking over as a director has been just a joy. You know, I started in the audience watching as a fan and just started asking questions. You know, how can I be involved? How can I help? How can I do more of this wonderful work? And, you know, over time it, you know, paid off, and you know, being the director of this festival is a dream. You know, it's a dream come true, and I've been a fan since the very beginning. I remember being at year 1 and just just my mind blown by the fact that they could have something like this in Phoenix and in Arizona, and being such a huge fan of horror and sci-fi, and you know, to see it grow, I'm really proud that you know I've been a part of it for as long as I have been.
Sweet.
Absolutely. And so this year is going to be no different, even though it is a very different kind of year. So the festival was originally delayed from its normal sort of summertime spot, and you guys were finally able to get it up and running here for November, and we want to make sure that we are putting this episode out the day that actually the festival is beginning, because we want anyone that's watching us here locally to go and support the festival, especially the horror section of it, the horror and sci-fi section of it, just because it's us. But, you know, the Phoenix Film Festival as a whole is a great event, and they bring a lot of great features to the local, you know, the local theater over here, the Harkins chain. It's definitely worth your time. And so what we're doing here today is we're going to go through the lineup. Last year we did sort of a lineup rundown, and so everyone knew the kind of coverage we were going to be doing. We're going to do the same thing this year. I'm going to be sort of the audience stand-in because I don't know exactly what's going on. I'm less than 3 weeks away from my son entering the world, so I'm a little preoccupied. But Fuego knows what's going on, so he and Monty are going to guide us through this year's festival availabilities.
First, before we move on, though, congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Monty. I appreciate that.
It's a huge thing, and you know, I have 2 little ones of my own, and you know, being a dad not only changes you as a film goer, but I think it just makes your life so much better. So I'm really happy that you're going on this journey.
Thank you very much, first off. And second off, you're absolutely right. I have found that already with 2 different, like, there was a scene in Greenland. I saw the advanced screening of Greenland that made me tear up because I have now got a kid coming, and I looked at a scene differently. And then Come Play, we just saw Come Play, and that hit me way differently because I've now got a kid on the way, and I've got like a 4-year-old that's now kind of mine as well. So it changes the way you watch movies. And I was like, does it really? And then it's happened, and I'm like, oh, it absolutely does.
Yeah. Well, little things as well too. You know, I just showed my son The Lost Boys, and it was so funny because you know, he's 8, almost 9 years old, and you know, I'd watch Lost Boys ahead of time just to make sure the content was fine, and I was like, okay, like there's really no nudity, and the violence, compared to today's standards, is so minimal, you know, compared to what we see on television nowadays. So I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and watch it, and it was so funny watching it through his eyes because, you know, here's a movie that I've grown up, you know, admiring and loving and just being such a big fan of. And my son, the tone, the comedy, the violence is kind of he just didn't think it was as amusing as what I thought it was going to be. So,
no.
And I don't want to spoil anything for those that haven't seen The Lost Boys. I'm sure anybody watching your channel has seen it 1,000 times. But
Yeah.
At the very end, when the grandpa comes busting through the door and the La Cucaracha horn is playing on his thing, my son just shook his head and he's like, "Grandpa saves the day?" And, and then as they're having their touching moment at the very end, you know, where the grandpa's looking at the camera and he says, "No, one thing I hated about Santa Clara is the damn vampires," right? And as soon as he says that, my son, in just the most sarcastic tone ever, starts to do the La Cucaracha theme with his, and just shaking his head, and then underneath his breath he goes, "So dumb." And it was quite literally one of the best moments ever because I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, he's gonna love this movie as much as I love this movie, and I'm sure he's already forgotten about it. So.
Great, something to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so Fuego, why don't you go ahead and lead us down this pathway, please?
Yes, I'm rather excited. So one quick question that I had, Monty. So was there ever like a possibility for the festival to go virtual like so many others did, or was it just like staunchly wanting to still do an in-person event?
You know, we discussed at length, you know, the possibility of going virtual. And I think like right after the event, right after we postponed the event, we did a bunch of virtual screenings of some films that were going to be in the festival. So Zombie Child is one of those movies that we did a virtual screening of during that time. We did a few different festival related virtual screenings. And, you know, after looking at it and, you know, really taking a look at what the festival would be, you know, we really wanted to try to, you know, work with our partners at Harkins who have been showing films there now for a few months and have really been doing a wonderful job on keeping things safe and controlled and you know, adhering to the CDC guidelines for events and everything like that. And, you know, we just felt like, you know, with that partnership and with us being, you know, diligent with our efforts, you know, we figured, you know, we might as well try it out and see what happens. And you know, safety is our biggest concern, and making sure that our audience members are as safe as possible. You know, we're lucky to have the partnership with Harkins, and, you know, on our end, we are being extra virtuous on trying to make sure that we are making it as safe as possible. So, you know, we're going to be watching movies with people wearing masks, and, you know, we're going to be, you know, enforcing the fact that, you know, masks must be worn at all times and the distancing needs to be adhered to and all those different things. But, you know, we're hopeful. You know, we aren't going to see the huge crowds like we've seen in the past. We aren't going to have as many movies as we normally play. You know, we're spacing our times out to keep the crowds down, and, you know, we understand that that we may not have as large a group of people, but it's important for us to keep, you know, the spirit of the cinema alive, to keep the, you know, the vessel of our festival, so that filmmakers can come in and show their films at our festival and everything. So, but yeah, it was you know, in no, you know, it was a conversation we had consistently to see how we were going to be moving forward with it. But, you know, the decision was made to have it in person, and we're really excited to try it out and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm honestly very stoked about that because I've been back to the cinema like 7 or 8 times since the reopening, and, you know, spacing and mask guidelines and all that stuff has been really vigilant. And I think that's what audiences need the reassurance about, is the fact that, I mean, you're probably safer going to a theater, in my estimation, than you are sitting in a bar for a couple hours or at a restaurant, you know, where people are actively taking off masks and eating and drinking. And lingering maybe longer than a 90 to 100-minute film. So yeah, which gets me excited. Last I saw was Synchronic, the more hit Benson movie, and it was solid. So it was a very, very reassuring experience, I think. So
Yeah, I went to a few of the Harkins throwback movies. So I went and watched Nightmare on Elm Street on the big screen and in Cine Capri, and it was there was maybe 10 people in a 400-seat theater. So
it was the same with me. It was very sparse. So
Yep.
Nice. Cool. So the reason that I asked about the virtual aspect is because the opening night film is one that I saw back at Chattanooga's virtual edition, and it's one of my favorite films of the year. Kokada. It's kind of got a cyclical, dare I say, Groundhog Day-ishness to it without getting too spoilery, but it's not full-on horror. It's thriller with some very hefty dramatic impact. Can you tell us a little bit about this movie?
Oh man, I got to see this movie. It was sent to me back before the festival. It was one of the first films that I had programmed, and I just love the combination of elements. I tell people all the time that to me, horror is the best genre, and science fiction can be the best genre because they embody so many different emotions, and you can be a bunch of different things with a horror film and a science fiction film. And when you add those human elements, and you can add those gory moments, and it just makes it so great. And I think this film has such it has a human element that makes the movie very emotional, but it also has this great tie-in of like you said, without being too spoilery, that Groundhog Day, reliving the same experience over and over again. And there's something so beautiful, or not beautiful, I guess, but really interesting about how they can do that, and the way that the film does it is very well done. But yeah, it was one of those movies that I as soon as I started watching it and I caught grasp of what the theme was going to be, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I know this is going to be something we're going to program.
Yeah, it was very impressive. It's the opening night film. It's going to be Friday evening at 7:50, and then it also replays on Sunday at 5 o'clock on the 22nd. So that's one that I can definitely recommend everybody goes and checks out. Keeping in the sci-fi vein, there's a film that is not actually getting its official release until 2021. It's this Olivia Cooke film called Little Fish. I'm not supremely familiar with it, but I'm captivated by the concept of memory loss and just the romantic element of these people trying to remember their love for each other before all of these memories fade. This is also a one-nighter. It's going to be Friday the 20th at 7:50. Can you give a little insight about this one?
Oh yeah, there's something that I love about science fiction films that have romantic angles. I think stories where, whether it's a dystopian future, whether it's a world filled with monsters, whether it's even this story where a virus has kind of taken control of the world. The fact that love still exists in those realms is something that's I always found very beautiful. And even in like the darkest horror films, it's always that emotion of love that really makes you feel things. And with this film, the fact that there is this romantic connection between two lead characters, trying to get through this world that looks hopeless. There's something so beautiful about that, and the film plays with those dramatic elements a lot. And the sci-fi at times will take a back seat to some of those more dramatic moments, but using the sci-fi elements as like a backdrop to portray this romance, I think is really the achievement of this film, and it does such a great job. And you can't help but just really get attached to those two characters from the very beginning. They're so likable, charming, and it just works so great. And I like when movies can do that, and put it behind a sci-fi vessel, and I'm really excited by it.
Sweet, yeah, it's definitely one of my most anticipated of the festival. So very stoked about that.
Love in the time of a virus. It sounds like something that would be appropriate to see right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Poignant, man. So a couple others that are in the sci-fi realm. There's A Living Dog, and then there is also A Feral World. So those are both kind of in the dystopian vein as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A Living Dog is one of our showcase films. A Living Dog is really interesting because, the film is very independent. So it was made by one person over the course of a few years. And all of the CGI elements, all of those little things are all done by the one person. And the film, for a large portion of it, is a silent film because of I don't want to give away too much, but because of the elements that are going on in the sci-fi world, where these machines have kind of taken control of this world. It almost plays out in the vein of something like A Quiet Place, where it's this generally quiet world that you have to be aware of because these machines are everywhere. And some of these machines are pretty big, some of them are kind of small, but it's really interesting the way that this filmmaker utilized that independent spirit to make a film that is just so much like so interesting. I mean, the tech in it is really great. Part of the reason why I picked this one is because it really does show like the potential for what filmmakers can do today, with technology advancing, with these cameras that people are getting that are shooting cinema images on a budget, on a pretty low budget. It's pretty amazing like what people can do now, and the fact that cinema, inside everybody's hands, we all have really fancy phones with these really great cameras. People are starting to really experiment with that, and at the end of the day, it's all about story, and it's all about character. And if you can portray human characters and play with emotions and put them in different scenarios, you got yourself an interesting tale. And now that these filmmakers can utilize all these different materials to their advantage, you're getting these wonderful films. And A Living Dog, I think, is a perfect example of that kind of film, that independent spirit that I'm going to do it on my own, and I'm going to make something great. There's something just really beautiful about that. A Feral World is one of our competition films. So that will be playing on our competition side. That movie is really great. I think there's, again, it's one of those films that I think character plays such a big role. And in a dystopian world, you can have characters who are really subtle and characters that are really big. And I think A Feral World does a great job of really playing into that effect of like utilizing these really interesting characters to, basically be in this dystopian world that can be rather vicious sometimes.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, stoked about both, but especially the aforementioned Living Dog, because of the fact that I was reading that he was working on it since 2016, various crowdfunding endeavors and stuff like that. So obviously a labor of love in that regard, which has me
so much.
And also the whole kind of Terminator element of machines having taken over and stuff intrigues me a lot. So next I want to mention, so some of these films, as we all know, are available digitally and have been for a little bit of time. Most notably, two Shudder releases, La Llorona, which, from what I was recently reading, has some Oscar international feature buzz behind it, which is really intriguing. And then also Blood Quantum. These were in place to be showcased back in the March-April iteration of it. These are presumably going to pack a lot more punch on a big screen in comparison with your little device, right?
Correct, definitely. I think both of these films, in terms of scope and what they're doing cinematography, they deserve to be shown on a big screen. And I'm so excited because, Blood Quantum was a film that I came across really in early 2020. I think like January, I started hearing buzz about it, and I had to get my hands on a screener. And, being indigenous and being, living in Arizona, I'm half Navajo, half Apache.
Yep.
Seeing this film that, you see people like you. And, to be honest, like as an indigenous person in the world, I don't see a lot of indigenous actors and indigenous stories being told. And the fact that, this film takes the oversaturated, overdone zombie mythology and puts it into a indigenous reservation with indigenous people, there was something that I just found so wonderful about that. And I think the actors in there are fantastic. I'm such a big fan of the director. It's just, there's just something that I just love about that movie that really connects with me. And I know that people have connected with it because people have watched it on Shudder already. But if you're looking to see this movie on the big screen and the scope that it was supposed to be seen in, I think it's a great opportunity to come out to the fest and watch that. And same with La Llorona. It's just an amazing, like, oh man, let me take a second to talk about this movie, because I saw this movie on a screener and like wasn't really exactly sure how I felt about it in the first like 30 minutes. I wasn't sure where they were going to go. I was really looking hard for the horror elements and all these things. And then all of a sudden, like, it just like takes hold of you, and it becomes just this beautiful story of, folklore and culture and mythology and history as well too. And it displays this this culture that is ruled by a dictator, and it weaves in this story of how his wife is protecting him with witchcraft, and there's all this wonderful elements inside there, and some of the twists that it takes you think it's going to shift one direction and it shifts a completely different direction. There's so much that I love about that movie, and I believe they are that movie is going to be submitted for the Best Picture for that movie. So I'm excited for folks to come out and watch both of them. I think they're both really well done flicks.
Excellent. Yeah, although more on the dramatic side from what I've read in comparison with Conjuring versus Curse of La Llorona, not to get the two confused.
Yes, definitely. Way more dramatic.
Yeah, nice. So another one that is available digitally that I want to call attention to, and you said that you did some like virtual screenings of this a while back, was Zombie Child, which you can rent for a cheaper price, but honestly, as opposed to seeing it on your computer, your home TV, whatever, on a big screen, this definitely has some very worthwhile representation. And give us a little info about this one.
Yeah, Zombie Child is another one of those films that really caught me by surprise because, you see the word Zombie Child and, I'm automatically thinking like that it's going to be, another big zombie movie. And, to be honest, like the last few years, it's really becoming more, I'm becoming more aware of the fact that zombies are never, ever going to go away, because every year there's another film that comes out that just really puts the zombies back in focus. It was Train to Busan a few years ago. It was One Cut of the Dead recently.
Oh, so good. That's another one from the festival that I gloated about. Well, actually, no, that was one that you just happened to recommend that I managed to catch and then saw it there. So yeah, that's an excellent one.
That movie was something I saw at another festival with a mostly Asian audience. And to watch it in that realm and hear what they were laughing at versus what I thought was funny just made me explore it so much more, because there's so much cultural diversity that's in these films. That what's funny to some people, to Americans, may not be generally funny to other cultures. So to hear what they were laughing at in that movie, I still remember those moments. And I think about One Cut of the Dead and standing in the hallways telling people, trust me, give me 30 minutes. Please give me 30 minutes. Please stay in the movie. I promise you, you're going to love it. And I did that for both screenings of that film at the festival. I have such a love for that movie. But anyways, going back to Zombie Child. Zombie Child is just one of those movies. I think it shadows a little bit in the vein of La Llorona that we're producing, and the fact that it is dramatic. It is a story about a group of girls. One of them has a secret. That secret goes back in history, and it has to connect to a voodoo ritual that is going on in their community. And it just is a really well done movie. Again, it's the performances again. The girls that they've got for this film that are all playing the lead roles are all very accomplished actresses, and they do such a great job of making everything feel genuine and making everything feel normal. And it's hard sometimes when you're trying to write that for young girls. And I think that movie does a great job of really showcasing that element, along with how, again, same with some of these other films, how culture portrays fear in different ways. And I think that's what's so beautiful about horror is, when you're looking at horror films from different cultural angles, what other cultures find horrific or fearful is what sometimes way different than what we might find fearful. So there's something I think that I just love that's, when programming the festival, when I'm picking these movies to play in our showcase, I'm always looking for those little elements. We all eventually are going to watch all these movies somewhere. But every now and then there's some movies that it may not be on your radar because it's just from another culture. And, for me, if they're doing a great job, I want to put it out there, and I stand behind all these films because they're just so well done. And it is weird to have it. Normally in the festival realm, I'm showing these films before people get access to them, and now this time I'm showing these movies again while people have already had access to them. So it's this reverse kind of thing where we're having people come back out to watch these movies, even though they're all readily available to them. And I hope that people take the advantage to go see one of these films on the big screen, because I think all three of the ones we mentioned so far will play very well in a big screen with nice sound and with an audience.
Nice, nice. So in that regard, I have to call out the two films that are not available to stream anywhere that I'm quite excited about. There's Bad Witch and there is Making Monsters. Definitely kind of a different approach with both of these. One is about kind of YouTube scare prankers, and then the other one is about a young guy named Xander, taking part in witchcraft. Can you, as we're kind of rounding things out, give us a little info about these two that you can't see anywhere else right now?
Yes, both of those are in our competition selection as well too. So those will be horror sci-fi feature competitions that you'll get to. And when we pick these movies, we have a great group of people that pick these movies. So I think you guys had one of our programmers on your show, Danny Marianino.
Oh yeah, Danny's the shiznit of damn.
Danny is our short horror programmer. So all of the shorts that we have in the festival are all handpicked by Danny. And Brandon Kitchen is also our feature programmer for horror. So he's the one who did the envious job of picking all these movies and finding 3 or 4 of them that worked for the horror side. And the fact that it seems like every year the kind of movies we're getting submitted have just been getting so much better every single year. And I keep saying that. I mean, it's going to sound like a broken record sooner or later, but every year that's a good thing. Yeah, every year I become more and more impressed with what these indie filmmakers are coming up with, and both of these films are great. They're taking the YouTube one, for instance, the scare tactics. There's some comedy going on there. There's this lighthearted nature, and then it takes a twist and turns into something more serious. And it just works really well. And these stories are starting to become so relevant, in the world that we live in today. And when you talk about a YouTube prank show, we see it all the time, and now it seems like we see it more often because everybody has a YouTube channel. I may be the only one in the world who doesn't have a YouTube channel right now.
Those are some of my favorites, though. Honestly, I read that synopsis just as you guys were getting to it, and I'm really excited about it because I loved Grave Encounters when it first came out, and that was the first that I can remember that it was like, what if a ghost hunting show actually found spirits and stuff started to go wrong? And then just earlier this year, actually just about a week ago, we reviewed The Cleansing Hour, which dropped on Shudder, which was a YouTube exorcism show that then encountered an actual exorcism. I don't care if that conceit is now like becoming more regular. I love that conceit so much that I will watch it, and so this one definitely sounds up my alley. I'm super excited about it.
And both of those movies that you just mentioned, tone-wise, are way different. Grave Encounters takes a little bit more of a lighthearted approach, where Cleansing Hour is trying really hard to be a serious possession film. I just saw Cleansing Hour actually I think for the festival actually. But when I remember watching it, I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, like, the YouTube trend, of showing these, having these movies fall into the world of social networking, social media, shows and stuff that people have now it's interesting because it is so relevant. Like I was talking to somebody recently who told me, like, they don't even watch normal television anymore. Their whole television's YouTube. So when I hear that kind of stuff, it always makes me think to myself, I'm like, wow, like, there's so much on YouTube too. Like, I look at my subscription list on YouTube, and I'm subscribed to everything from, like, you guys, all the way down to watching people turn rusty metal into glowing swords. So I have a wide breadth of likes on my YouTube channels.
I feel like now I kind of want to investigate YouTube channels and see how I could turn them into horror movies, like like that. Yeah. Like, what if it was a smelter that started killing people, that knew how to create weapons for each new thing. I don't know. All right, not going to give away gold.
Or a guy or maybe like a group of guys that do trick shots, right? That then get told by some killer that they have to saw like jigsaw. You have to make this one before the time runs out.
That's funny, dude. That's not bad, actually. Oh
And
wow.
it just keeps
Okay.
getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
Someone's gonna do that now. You better
Someone's gonna do it,
copyright
yeah.
that.
I know. Right?
As Cecil grabs notebook and just
Yeah. Shh.
But yeah, those were just a few of the selections that I wanted to call attention to. There are still others like the honeymoon phase I'm very excited about. It's been on my radar for a while. There's an animated film called To Your Last Death. But I mean, really, it's an awesomely eclectic, both national here in the States and lots of international flavor for, both science fiction and horror. So we are very stoked to be covering this event once again, everybody. It's going to be running from November 12th through the 22nd. And many of these films, with the exception of Little Fish, if I'm not mistaken, they're going to be shown at least a second or a third time, right?
Correct. Little Fish is the only movie that just has a 1-day screening, and that will be, I think, Friday on our official second weekend. We'll be playing that, and the way it works for horror and sci-fi is the first weekend we'll have one theater that we operate. On the second weekend, we have 2 theaters that we'll be playing out of. So, second weekend is always dedicated a little bit more specifically to the horror sci-fi realm. So,
Max Winslow in the House of Secrets looks pretty good too.
You can see twice. Most of them you can see twice, either this coming weekend or during the week. So.
Nice.
Yep. And also don't neglect the sci-fi and the horror shorts either, everybody. Some of our favorite things, including the 20 matches, if I remember correctly. That was one of the best we've seen in the last number of years. So there's always just little gems, even at a shorter runtime in there too. So
yeah, it's really awesome to look back at some of those short films and see the directors and see where they've gone on, what they've moved on to in the world and stuff. And I always think back to, one of our first festivals that we ever had, Mike Flanagan was a director.
Look at him now.
So,
God damn.
now he's everywhere. So, but I remember when his first film came out and everybody just being so stoked about how good it was, and we were all excited about it. And
was that Absentia?
That was Absentia, yeah.
Yeah, which he also filmed here, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've always loved that one.
Yeah.
So, Mike Flanagan will always have a very personal place in my heart because he just such a genuinely nice dude, and the fact that we got his film early and were able to play it at the fest is, it's just something I remember very, very. That's one of my favorite memories, I think, about the fest was, having people discover that and then discovering him as well too. So.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, guys, that's as good a transition as any. Come and make your own memories at this year's Phoenix Film Festival and International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival branch of the event. We'll be there catching as many of these movies as we possibly can. If you see us, give us a socially distanced wave, hello, we can chat safely about the films that we watch and stuff. But thank you, Monty, very much for joining us and filling us in on all of these films. Again, this is going on right now as this drops tonight. The films the event has started. You've got through this weekend all the way through next week and next weekend as well. So plenty of time to get out there and catch a lot of these movies. Definitely worth your time if the past years have been any indication. So
yeah, and also support cinema, man, because they have had such a rough year. And I mean, Harkins, especially being a local company here in Arizona, at least started. I mean, they've got other theaters throughout the Southwest and stuff. But I mean, just showing a local, longtime, supporter of theater support is pretty sweet. So
yeah,
indeed.
Definitely.
Now, Monty, what are the websites that they can go to grab their tickets and get any information they need?
All your information is going to be found through phoenixfilmfestival.com. Our schedule is going to be there. Our program is made digital there as well too, so you can look at the program on there. All the tickets will be available through that website. And when you come to the festival, we do have a ticketing center as well too that you can get tickets from as well. But all of the information you're going to need can be found at phoenixfilmfestival.com.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us. Make sure you support the festival in any way you can. Thanks again to Monty. Thank you to everyone involved with the Phoenix Film Festival and International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival for allowing the horror show to come and cover it all these years. We greatly appreciate it. And, being film lovers, it's really a outstanding event for us to go to every year. So thank you to everyone. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, Jaime Fuego.
And that was Monte Yazzie. And remember, stay scared.
Stay scared.